They say you never really know a person until they start losing something. I was 18 when my father remarried, and I learned how fast love can turn into a ledger. For a long time, it was just the two of us, me and my dad, Daniel. He ran a chain of small auto repair shops around town, 6 bays in most locations, coffee that tasted like burnt courage, and regulars who swore he could hear an engine misfire from across the street. He wasn't warm in the way some dads are. He was a provider, a mover. He measured love in errands and early mornings. Then came Samantha. She arrived like a commercial. Glossy hair, white smile, hands that never looked busy but always closed around something. My dad fell so fast I got whiplash standing still. Within a year, they were married. She moved into our house with her scented candles and her 1,000 little rules. Shoes off by the door. No mugs on the coffee table. Let me handle the books for the business. Daniel, you should relax more. Relax, my dad repeated like it was a foreign word. Maybe. From the first day, there was a static in the air around her, a hum you hear but can't place. When she smiled at me, it was perfectly symmetrical and perfectly empty. When she looked at her phone, it was with her thumb covering the screen, the way you hold something that bites. I tried to be decent. I took out the trash without being asked. I complimented her cooking. I stayed out of their way, but little things collect like interest. The way she accidentally called me by my father's name when she wanted me to do something. The way she discouraged any conversation about my mother. Not cruelly, just efficiently. As if the past were a drawer she could keep closed. My dad started letting Samantha handle paperwork. Invoices flowed through her laptop. Payroll transitioned to a program she insisted was industry standard. Vendors started emailing Samantha accounts payable instead of my dad. When I asked about it, he waved me off. Delegation, he said. The shops run me too hard. She's helping. Maybe that would have been the end of it, a slow surrender and a quiet life, if I hadn't come home early one night from study group. There was a black sedan idling at the curb. In the kitchen, the lights were low. I walked in and froze. Samantha was pressed against a man I'd never seen before, one hand in his hair, the other on the back of his neck. They didn't see me at first. The world had narrowed to the square foot of space between them. Then she spoke, softly but clear enough to carve into stone. Once everything's in my name, he won't even notice until it's done. The man chuckled. You're a genius. She laughed that perfect, empty laugh. I'm practical. I stepped back so quietly the floor apologized. Upstairs in my room, my heart tried to outrun me. Denial is a strong drug, but there are sentences that don't leave room for overdosing. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and listened to the house breathe. In the morning, I made a plan that wasn't really a plan. I told myself, evidence, not emotion. If I went to my dad with nothing but rage, I would be the problem. If I brought proof, I would be a son. Samantha loved her phone. She also loved not believing anyone could outthink her. During breakfast, she left it face down on the counter while she went to get a sweater. I tapped the screen. Locked. Of course. But later, when she asked me to carry groceries in from the car, she set it on the hall table and forgot it there for a second. I saw the preview of a text. Meeting at 3. Same hotel. The contact name wasn't a person. It was a business. Pioneer Holdings, LLC. I didn't take her phone. I took a photo of the notification with mine. Evidence is a mosaic. You collect tiles. At the shops, I started paying attention to conversations I used to ignore. A vendor mentioned a new ACH account for payments. Samantha said to switch. A longtime manager, Mr. Rivas, asked if my dad was sure about moving the human resources files to the cloud service. My dad shrugged. Samantha knows the system. That night, I borrowed my dad's office keys to grab a notebook. Inside the filing cabinet, the bottom drawer was suddenly neatly organized. New folders labeled with Samantha's handwriting. Consolidation plan, vendor rationalization, legal, transfer, Pioneer. I took photos. When I opened the Pioneer folder, my stomach dropped. It was a shell company, formed 3 months earlier. Manager, Samantha Hart River. Beneficial owner, a trust with my father's birth date, except the middle digit was wrong, a typo, or camouflage. Either way, the effect was the same. Permission masquerading as protection. I confronted her in the safest way I could think of, by pretending I was dumb. "Hey," I said after dinner, "what's Pioneer?" I saw an email. She didn't blink. "A vendor consolidation platform. For car parts?" "For everything," she said, and smiled. I turned away so she wouldn't see my face, remembering the man in the kitchen. Days passed. I gathered more tiles. A lunch receipt from a hotel. A photo, blurry but undeniable, of Samantha and the same man in a booth by the window of the Riverside Grill. A forwarded invoice showing funds moving from our operating account to Pioneer for consultancy. I wasn't clever enough to hack anything, but I was patient enough to check the mail. Twice a week, I intercepted thin envelopes addressed to my father from banks we didn't use. "Welcome to online business banking. Thanks for opening your account." The addresses on the letters matched Pioneer's registered office. I photographed them and put them back. My hands shook until bedtime. When I finally went to my dad, I brought a folder. He was at his desk, sleeves rolled to his elbows, grease on his knuckles like old jewelry. I put the folder down and sat. He didn't look up. "Dad," I said, and my voice had too much water in it. "I need you to see something." He read the first printout, then the second, then the third. By the fourth, he wasn't reading, he was flipping. "This is nonsense," he said gently. Gently, like I was a child learning that winter comes every year. "You don't understand how we do things now." "Look at the signatures," I said. "Look at the transfers. Pioneer is—" "I trust my wife," he said, and the word wife was a hammer. "You've struggled with that from the day we brought her home. You think I haven't noticed?" "I saw her with someone," I blurted. "In our kitchen." So I did. I sat on a plastic chair in a gray office and told a woman in a navy blazer the shortest version of a long story. She listened without nodding. At the end, she gave me a form and a case number that felt like a lottery ticket no one wins. I also called a lawyer, not for my father, for me. Her name was Alvarez. She was small and sharp and allergic to nonsense. "You don't have standing to file much," she said, "but if funds are being moved from a company your name is attached to as an employee or beneficiary, we can at least create friction." She drafted a letter to the bank citing suspected unauthorized transfers, and a second to Pioneer's registered agent demanding preservation of records for pending litigation. "It may not stop them," she said, "but it slows the thieves." 2 weeks later, Samantha called me. Her voice was sugar over gravel. "You've been busy." I said nothing. "I understand you're upset," she went on. "But what you're doing hurts your father. Vendors are spooked. We could lose everything because you can't move on." "Because I can't move on from you stealing my father's company with your boyfriend?" Silence. Then, light laughter. "You're so dramatic. There's no boyfriend. There's business. If you keep interfering, I will file a restraining order. I'll say you're harassing me. I'll say you're unstable. And your father will believe me because I come home to him, and you don't." "Where are you right now?" I asked. "Home," she said promptly. I hung up. Mr. Rivas texted a photo, 10 minutes later, of Samantha at the Riverside Grill. Same booth, same man. I forwarded it to Alvarez, who attached it to the preservation letter with a timestamp and a note even I could understand. Pattern. Something shifted then. Maybe it was luck. Maybe it was the universe getting bored. The bank froze 2 transfers pending review. The shell company's agent declined to certify a set of documents while a dispute exists. A vendor called my dad to ask why payments were being routed to Pioneer. My dad called Samantha, and Mr. Rivas, who was in the office, heard the argument through the wall. He told me he had never heard my father raise his voice like that. 3 days passed. Then my father called me. He didn't say hello. He said my name in a way that used to mean I'd left my bike in the driveway. "Come to the house," he said. "Now." I walked in, ready to be told I was ungrateful, paranoid, cruel. Instead, I found my father sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of printouts and Samantha standing by the counter, arms folded so tight her knuckles looked like chalk. "Explain this," my father said to her, sliding a page across, one of the bank confirmations the manager had finally sent after the freeze. "Explain why funds went from our operating account to a company I didn't authorize." She didn't flinch. "I did authorize it, as your wife." "This is my signature," he said, tapping a copy of a form. "Only it isn't." She smiled like a person who has already rehearsed the jury. "Are you accusing me of fraud, Daniel?" "After everything I've done for this business?" "I'm asking you a question." "Fine," she said, and her voice lost all its honey. "Yes, I moved money to protect us. Your way is slow and sentimental. Contracts, favors, cash under the table for old friends who bring nothing to the bottom line. I streamlined, I optimized, and yes, I took my share, because you owe me for pulling this company out of the Stone Age." He stared at her, empty and astonished, the look a man has when the tornado finally spins out and leaves his house in the next county. "And the man at the hotel?" he asked quietly. She laughed, head thrown back, the laugh I had heard the first night. "Grow up, Daniel." My father exhaled like the first breath after a long dive. "Leave," he said. She blinked. "What?" "Leave my house." "You can't be serious." He stood. "I'm done being a man who refuses to see the room he's standing in." She looked between us as if the furniture had betrayed her. "You'll hear from my lawyer," she said, and swept out like the scene belonged to her. When the door closed, the house finally made a sound I'd been waiting for since the day she moved in. Silence that wasn't empty, just unoccupied. My father sat down and put his face in his hands. Then he looked at me, and I saw that same choice I saw the night he threw me out, except this time, he chose me. "I'm sorry," he said, and the words shook. "I was blind, because it was easier." I wanted to be righteous. I wanted to say, "I told you so." Instead, I put the evidence between us and said, "Let's work." The next month was an emergency we lived inside. Alvarez filed for a temporary restraining order to prevent asset transfers. The bank, stung by the possibility of a scandal, cooperated more readily. We discovered Pioneer had set up 3 more accounts at smaller banks and scheduled outgoing wires to affiliates. We flagged them all. We moved payroll to a clean account. We called vendors one by one and promised cash on delivery until trust could be rebuilt. Samantha didn't go quietly. She sent letters through her lawyer claiming marital interest in the business, alleging abuse when my father changed passwords, and requesting spousal support, large enough to buy a small island. She also threatened to go public with financial irregularities, which Alvarez diffused with a truth weapon. If she spreads false information, she'll eat a defamation suit. If she spreads true information, well, we have nothing to hide, and she'll be confessing to her own fraud in the process. Then came the break we didn't expect. The man from the hotel, his name turned out to be Cole, was arrested on an unrelated charge. In his car, the police found a folder labeled Pioneer. Inside, drafts of contracts, lists of accounts, a crude flowchart with arrows from my father's company to pioneer to a new LLC in Cole's name. When the detective called and asked if we knew a Samantha Hart River, my father closed his eyes and said, "Too well." The case moved from civil to criminal. I sat with my father in a courtroom that smelled like old paper and watched Samantha finally meet a room she couldn't choreograph. She pleaded not guilty, posted bail, and stared straight ahead like a statue that refused to be history. Cole flipped fast, trading testimony for a lighter sentence. The DA offered Samantha a deal. She rejected it. Pride is a poor lawyer. By the time the dust settled, we weren't whole, but we weren't broken. The judge froze what remained of Pioneer's accounts and ordered restitution to my father's company. We recovered enough to keep the doors open. We lost a location we loved and 2 managers who couldn't afford to wait. We kept our name. One evening, after the last customer paid and the bay doors rattled closed, my father handed me a set of keys. Not to a car, to the office. "You're not a kid," he said, "and I need a partner who sees things I don't." "I don't know enough," I said. "You know enough to tell the truth when I didn't want to hear it," he said. "You'll learn the rest." We rebuilt slowly and loudly. We put up a sign at the counter that said, "We will make mistakes. We will fix them." We called every customer Samantha had alienated and offered free oil changes. We held a barbecue in the parking lot one Saturday for the neighborhood, and a reporter from the local paper came by. She asked what changed. My father said, "I started listening to my son." Sometimes customers recognized me from that little article and said, "You're the reason this place is still here." I shook my head. The reason was everyone who kept showing up, even when it was easier to drive past. Months later, after sentencing, Samantha asked to see my father. He agreed to meet in a supervised room that looked like a classroom lost its pencils. She apologized the way people apologize who are sorry they got caught. She tried to blame Cole, then her childhood, then stress. My father listened. When she finished, he nodded and said, "I hope you become someone better. You don't get to be that someone here." We walked out into sunlight that felt new. In the parking lot, my father stopped, put a hand on my shoulder, and said, "I can make money again. Time with you is the thing I can't buy back. I'm sorry for the peace I lost." "We're here now," I said. We drove back to the shop with the windows down. Mr. Rivas was teaching a new kid how to listen to an engine, the way you tilt your head, the way you wait for the sound under the sound. My father watched them for a long moment and smiled like a man who had finally found a quiet he wanted to keep. On my 19th birthday, we filed new paperwork, River and Son Automotive. It wasn't clever. It didn't need to be. The name was a promise and a receipt. People always ask how I forgave my father for throwing me out. I tell them it wasn't one moment. It was a series of small ones. The night he called me son instead of kid. The morning he asked my opinion before he had one. The afternoon he admitted he had chosen blindness because it was easier than changing. And what about Samantha? Sometimes I still feel the old anger rise, hot and dizzy. I let it pass. She's a cautionary tale now, not a character in our house. The better ending isn't that she suffers. It's that we don't live in her story anymore. If there's a moral, it's boring and hard. Love isn't a reason to stop checking the math. Trust isn't the absence of doubt. It's the choice to face doubt together. And family, if you're lucky, is what's left when everything else gets audited. We close the shop at 6 most nights. My father locks the bay doors with the same hands that taught me to ride a bike. I turn off the lights. We step outside into the warm dark and listen to the street breathe. Sometimes he says, "You hungry?" And we go eat burgers like kings who own exactly enough kingdom for 2. People say you never really know a person until they start losing something. Maybe. I think you really know them when they decide what to keep. We kept each other. That's the business that matters.